my lovely people, and welcome to Owen's Mind, a light-hearted trip through the contents of my head and the world in general. It is Sunday the 1st of December. My name is Owen, and here is what is on my mind today. So first of all, happy December. It is now the final run up to Christmas. We're into December, which means you can now open your advent calendar. So if you've got a nice chocolate advent calendar like most people have, good for you. If you're a bit more posh and you've got a gin one or a beer one or a red wine one, have at it. I have one, so let's do this together. So this is my advent calendar, which I didn't buy. My mother bought me this. Just to let you know, for some context, I am 42 years old, and yet, mothers be mothers. So I'm going to have a chocolate. I've pre-opened it so it doesn't take up too much time in the video. So it's a little chocolate Santa there. Good, there you go. So, excuse me one moment. Right off the bat, today's video, I'm not going to talk about the horrible events that happened in London. There is so much coverage, and there's so many news outlets who would do a far better job than I ever could. So, all I'll say is thoughts go out to the families and, people who've been lost, people who've been injured, and, we wish them a speedy recovery. And yeah, it's a horrible thing, but like I say, there is people doing far better coverage than I ever could, and they're going to do it real justice. It's not something I'm going to put on here because I tend to take a light-hearted look at things. There is no funny aspect to that. So, thoughts and prayers, and yeah, we wish everybody well. So what am I going to talk about? Well, as usual, I picked out 5 stories making the headlines that I do want to give my thoughts on. Links will be in the description below, so you can read each article in full and show those original publications some love. So, without further ado, let's get into story number 1. So, story number 1. Leonardo DiCaprio responded to Brazilian president blaming him for the Amazon fires. Yeah, it's in BuzzFeed News today. If you don't know about this, it happened late last week. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio denied Brazilian President, I think it's Jair or Bolsonaro's claims that the actor funded efforts that started fires in the Amazon rainforest. It's crazy because Leonardo is a huge environmentalist. So, in a statement posted on his Instagram on Saturday, DiCaprio said he has not provided support to organisations that are accused of setting the fires. Instead, the actor said he was committed to supporting indigenous communities, local government, scientists and others who are working to protect the world's largest tropical rainforest. This is actually what he put out. So at this time of crisis for the Amazon, I support the people of Brazil working to save their natural and cultural heritage. They are an amazing, moving and humbling example of the commitment and passion needed to save the environment. The future of these irreplaceable ecosystems is at stake. I am proud to stand with the groups protecting them. While worthy of support, we did not fund the organisations targeted. I remain committed to supporting the Brazilian indigenous communities, local governments, scientists, educators and general public who are working tirelessly to secure the Amazon for the future of all Brazilians. Leonardo DiCaprio, actor and environmentalist. So yeah, this was on Friday. Bolsonaro, who had advocated for development in the Amazon, claimed without proof that DiCaprio had funded non-profit groups that his government had accused of intentionally setting fires in the rainforest. His statement was, "DiCaprio is a cool guy, isn't he? Giving money to the Amazon. Giving money to set the Amazon on fire," the president said, according to the Associated Press. The president's remarks came days after Brazilian police arrested volunteer firefighters and raided a non-profit association with fire prevention efforts. Civic leaders and environmental groups believe that law enforcement actions are part of a larger campaign to crack down on non-profit environmental groups operating in the country. In August, Bolsonaro suggested, again without offering any proof, that the NGOs might be setting fires deliberately in order to make him look bad. While worthy of support, we do not fund the organisations targeted, DiCaprio said in a statement. Earth Alliance, the active environmental organisation, has pledged $5 million to help protect the Amazon after a spike in fires in the region this year. BuzzFeed News has reported on the link between illegal deforestation, which has accelerated under Bolsonaro, and the recent cluster of fires in the Amazon. In his post, DiCaprio included statements from representatives of other conservation groups who echoed support for the groups targeted by the Brazilian government's investigation into the fires. "We stand by those falsely accused of starting forest fires in the Amazon and reaffirm our support to those who are dedicated to protecting one of our planet's most vital and imperiled ecosystems," said Wes Schaechrest, Chief Scientist and CEO of Global Wildlife Conservation. So first and foremost, classy response from DiCaprio. He must know, he's well aware that people are going to read this and just go, well, that's a load of rubbish. So he doesn't have to defend himself too vigorously because it's just a ludicrous story. There's been a lot of statements recently about Bolsonaro kind of that he's trying to condemn the fighters, going, "No, it's not me," while at the same time encouraging them, targeting people who are out there working to stop it. So he kind of arrests them and just say, "Oh no, they're doing it," and they're like, "No, we're not." And so he's having them removed, um, and sort of blocking their ability to actually combat these fighters. And the general consensus that he's encouraging clearance of these large areas, at the behest of wealthy people who are going to, farm cattle and things there. And yeah, so, but yeah, classy response from Leo, as you'd expect from the man. So yeah, just a really weird story. The fact that he'd kind of come out, he'd choose somebody there is so much footage and reports, and there's so much evidence that it's not Leo, that he's doing so much to kind of protect the environment. And I believe he has some sort of investment or some sort of stake in a electric vehicles company and this kind of thing. He's doing so much to try and protect the future of the planet, that to kind of single him out and go, he's doing it. He's like, why him? If you're gonna make something up, find somebody who's at least plausible, or somebody that there's a little bit of evidence or a little bit of like, yeah, well, he's, we don't know much about him. It could be, he could have said something. But with this, it's like, no, it's so clearly not. So anyway, there you go. Let's move on to story number 2. This one, bit of a sad story. So this is in CNN Entertainment today. After another K-pop death, spotlight turns to difficulties faced by the industry's perfect stars. So yeah, Seoul, South Korea. An industry where stars face immense pressure to portray themselves as an immaculate image of happiness, but K-pop duo Guhara and Suli appeared to be different. Towards the end of their lives, the close friends were honest about who they were. They didn't try to adopt a persona as a perfect lover or sister. They spoke their minds, and they were fallible. So Gu's death occurred on Sunday, 6 weeks after Suli's apparent suicide, and left many fans angry and confused, and reignited conversations about the issues of cyberbullying, gender violence, and especially the mental well-being of celebrities living in South Korea's intense K-pop bubble. So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's all the bands like BTS and all the other K-pop stuff. They have incredibly stringent schedules and do's and don'ts that they can do. They have to appear to be the absolute model of perfection to the outside world, and it appears that some people that may be related, not entirely but partly, towards some people sadly reaching a breaking point. So women in South Korea have had some success fighting for equality in what is a deeply patriarchal and male-dominated society, but they still face serious challenges unique to the country. South Korea ranks well below the global average on the 2018 Global Gender Gap Report, with major disparities in terms of wage equality and income earned for women. Some say the fight is even more pronounced in K-pop. Yet despite working in an industry that pressures women to be perfect, Gu and Sully tried to break the mold. When South Korea legalized abortion this year, Sully publicly declared that she was pro-choice. She was open about her mental health struggles, insisted women should not have to wear bras if they found uncomfortable, and once live-streamed herself drinking alcohol without wearing a bra. I wanted to break that frame and show that it's no big deal, Sully said on TV in June, referring to a decision to ditch her bra. But each time Sully posted a selfie on Instagram that showed her eschewing the K-pop norm, she faced scathing criticism. Some called her choices controversial, others attacked her as desperate for attention. Yeah, social media kind of having a go at people. Sully said she feared the online vitriol could seep into her public life, so she tried to avoid areas where she'd be filmed. I used to only take to small alleys, and it felt like there were cameras everywhere, Sully said in the same TV appearance. Gu faced challenges of her own. Her ex-boyfriend Choi Jong-bum was found guilty of assault and blackmail after he threatened to leak a video of them having sex. Gu was reportedly trolled online for appearing in the video. In June, she posted on Instagram that she would no longer be merciful towards malicious comments and suggested she may take legal action. In a rare admission for a K-pop celebrity, she also revealed in the same post that she was suffering from depression. She was found unconscious in her home the previous month, only days before she was scheduled to testify in Choi's case. Choi avoided prison with a suspended sentence in August. Gu's attorney, Moon Jin-gu, expressed deep satisfaction at the ruling, saying in a statement that the punishment was insufficient to deter such behaviour. To remove from our society the type of crime Choi committed, a harsher punishment is needed, Moon said. South Korea is undoubtedly going through a mental health crisis. The country's suicide rate last year was 26.6 per 100,000 people, almost double the US average. Park Jong-woo, a psychiatrist and the director of the South Korea Suicide Prevention Center, attributes part of this to the social stigma. Fewer South Koreans who suffer from depression seek help than in other developing countries, studies show. Peck said those in the entertainment industry might be especially at risk. Artists tend to experience emotions more vividly, and because their job is being loved by the public, they cannot help but be more sensitive to public views. Explained that stars often cannot access mental health professionals, due to the fear of public shame and the lack of their time in their schedules. Yeah, that's again, we hear this a lot about the K-pop kind of stuff. An average day for a K-pop star can be 16 hours or longer, filled with everything from dance practice to singing lessons, language class, and camera training. Stacey Nam, a K-pop producer who also does public relations work for the musicians and stars, believes entertainment agencies should employ their own mental health specialists. Who is trained to go from a normal person to all of a sudden being loved and at the same time criticised by people all over the globe? Nam said. There is now concern that recent events could result in even more suicides. Pike said that in the month after the widely publicised suicide of Korean actress Choi Jin-sil in 2008, there were almost 1,000 extra suicides compared to the previous year. There needs to be special attention to prevent celebrity suicides, Pike said. I would agree that, but not just celebrity suicide, suicide in general. There needs to be more done. We hear this a lot about and the article is based primarily about South Korea, but just the pressures in general on people. And, there's sometimes a lack of sympathy going to celebrities. Oh, poor them, with their millions of dollars and that. They're people. Celebrities are just people with a cool job. They still go through stuff that everybody else goes through. They still have worries. They still have stresses. They still are as vulnerable to mental issues and pressure and problems with family and addiction as anybody else is, if not more so, because the spotlight is upon them. And if I go out wearing, not looking my best, which is not hard, a couple of mates might put up a comment, or they might say something to me. If these people do this, if celebrities do this, 5 million people will come at them saying you look bad, the dress is terrible, your makeup's horrible, etc., etc., etc. If you put on weight, and that's got to be a huge pressure, particularly if your job depends on to some extent, you being liked and loved by the public. When you get so much negativity thrown at you, that's got to have an impact. And sadly, in the cases of these two young ladies, it's that was seen as a contributing factor. So again, it's good that it says things hopefully changing. People are recognising now that this is an issue, and it's for some, you seem to get these articles, they're cyclical, they come out every few years, and it's like, we recognise that this is an issue, and then it goes quiet, and then more people are taking their own life, and then it's like, we recognise this is an issue. It's like, well, didn't you recognise it was an issue 10 years ago, 20 years ago? This is not a new phenomenon, but it does seem to be escalated by social media, because there is now more pressure can be applied to people. And people you don't even know. There's now so many outside sources that can come in, and if you are in a bad place, they can make it so much worse. I do believe they have a power to make it so much better as well. If somebody is feeling bad or feeling in a negative space, and it's mentioned on their social media, and they have a huge social media thing, if 1 million people came at them with positivity, that's got to have a good impact, surely. That's when social media can really can be used as a tool for good. Surely if 1 million people can come at you and say, you're not alone in this. You look great, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're whatever. Don't, 10 people have come at you and said that dress was bad and you look fat. You don't, you look amazing. Surely that would have some sort of effect as well. And I am no expert on mental health at all. There does need to be more guidance, particularly for people in general, absolutely, but people in these industries as well, because it's such a microcosm of emotion and contact with people. There needs to be much more support. And it sounds like this person at the end here needs special attention to prevent celebrity suicides. Yeah, but again, people in general. Was it Stacey Nam? Yeah. these agencies should they should take more care of these people, because they must recognise they're putting immense pressure on people in these positions to perform. Like I say, if they're doing 16 hours a day of just work, a lot of people do work 16 hours a day, all over the world, and most, people work long hours. But when those 16 hours are completely focused on perfection, you have to nail this song, this language lesson, this dance. It's, most people's work is not 16 hours of that kind of pressure. If you are putting that on your young stars, you need to be able to recognise that not all of them are going to be able to cope with it. I'd say most of them are not going to be able to cope with that level of pressure without some sort of outlet. And that could be lead to some sort of addiction. It could be they find solace in alcohol or drugs or whatever it happens to be. So they do need to have more in place to kind of spot this and deal with it, and maybe just have people who can sort of put their hand down and say, look, the pressure you're putting on is too much, it needs to be less. And again, because the celebrity industry and music, and it's, it churns these people out, and it's like, nope, we can't, we've got to do 16 hours a day, because if we do 10 hours a day, there's another company down the road and they're working their stars 16 hours a day. So there needs to be some way of, like, across the industry saying, this is too much. So, yeah, hopefully things will change. I get the feeling I'm going to be sat here in 5 years going, hopefully things will change about this exact same issue. I really hope I'm not, but there we go. Moving on. Story number 3. This is in the Mirror today. So, death row inmate stranger's last meals from huge feast to a single olive. So, not the most joyous of story, but it's just an odd one, and it's an interesting one. So, I brought it up because that's what I do. So, most US death row inmates are famously given a last meal, final food of their choice before being executed for their crimes. The rules around the meal vary from state to state, with Florida insisting that food is bought locally for no more than $40, which is about 31 quid, while Oklahoma's budget is just $15 or £11. In 2011, Texas scrapped the tradition after one inmate asked for an extravagant meal and they didn't eat a bite. White supremacist Lawrence Russell Brewer, 44, was convicted for the racist murder of James Byrd Jr., who was chained to a truck and dragged to his death in 1998. I remember that. I remember that being in the news. Brewer ordered 2 fried chicken steaks with gravy and onion slices, a triple patty bacon cheeseburger, and a cheese omelette with beef mince, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos. For dessert, he was served a pint of ice cream and peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts. He was given 3 root beers to wash it down. And he just decided not to eat it. So instead, they're now given nothing special standard dish. It varies by state, but usually includes meat, potato, or rice, and a sweet treat. In those states that do still offer the inmate's choice, there's been some pretty unusual requests over the years, and the article looks at a few of them. So there is loads in the article. I'm just going to read a couple. So Victor Fugger was the last individual to be put to death in the state of Iowa before it abolished the death penalty in 1965. For his last meal, he ordered a single olive with a pit in it. Oh, okay. So a single olive. That was the last meal. Fugger, known as a drifter, lured Dr. Edward Bartels to his home on the premises with a woman who needed medical attention before he shot him in the head and dumped his body in a cornfield. He was sentenced to death by hanging. It's claimed he hoped a tree would sprout from his grave after the burial. So hence the single olive, so he must have swallowed the pit as well. Velma Barfield was the first woman to be executed by lethal injection after the death penalty was reinstated in the US in 1976. She was initially convicted of 1 murder, the killing of her husband Thomas Burke, but eventually admitted to 6, including her second husband Jennings Barfield and her own mother. Barfield poisoned her victims with arsenic. Her last meal was simply Coca-Cola and cheese doodles, which is, for a UK audience, Wotsits basically. Gregory Paul Lawler opened fire on Atlanta police with an AR-15 rifle in 1997, slaughtering Officer John Soworth, 28, and critically wounding Patricia Cacciglione after they gave his intoxicated girlfriend a lift home. Cacciglione suffered a shattered pelvis, damaged intestines, and permanent brain injury. Lawler, who had an extreme dislike of police, ordered French onion soup, asparagus, ribeye steak, a baked potato with sour cream, dinner rolls with butter, pistachio ice cream, strawberries, milk, and apple juice. Ricky Ray Rector was convicted for 2 counts of murder and sentenced to death in Arkansas by lethal injection, aged 42. In 1981, Rector shot at random in a restaurant following an argument he had outside the venue earlier that day about a $3 service charge. Arthur Criswell was shot in the head and 2 other people were wounded. After initially agreeing to hand himself in, Rector shot a police officer, a family friend, in the back. He ordered a steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid and pecan pie. He left the pie on the side of the tray, telling officers who came to take into the execution chamber he was saving it for later. The slice of pie was not binned until Rector had been executed. So yeah, I just thought this was quite an interesting thing, because it's like, what would you go for if this is your last meal on Earth? Would you go for something like nostalgic, something that reminds you of like a nice warm memory as a child to kind of soothe you in those final moments? What do you think? What about if there's something you've always wanted to try and never got around to it, and now never will? Like, maybe I've always wanted to try, I don't know, duck à l'orange or something. Would you do that for your last meal? Because if it's disappointing, I know your day's only going to get worse, but it's like, or would you go for something that's like, I know I'm going to enjoy this? I mean, to be honest, I don't think I even have the nous to give it any thought. That day, I think that I've got so much more going on. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. That's going to be my final question before we go. So start thinking about it now. But yeah, just thought it was an interesting story. Next one, let's lighten the mood a little bit. Story number 4. Baby Yoda is outtrending the Democratic presidential candidates. This comes to us from Quartz via MSN News today. So yeah, Baby Yoda, the breakout star of the new Star Wars live-action series The Mandalorian, which is streaming on Disney Plus, and currently I think episode 4 has just dropped. Suddenly everywhere, by which we mean in every social media feed. The child, as a tiny green character is officially titled, has been memed for his penchant for touching things he's been asked not to touch. One industrious knitter is crafting a pattern that will allow others to replicate her homemade version of the big ear charm. I'll show you this. This is fantastic. Look at that. So she's she's now going to put the plans up so you yourself can make a baby knitted Yoda. Oh, isn't that lovely? Yeah. So in short, many people are swooning, which must please the executives of Disney Plus, the streaming service that created the show. But according to the online news site Axios, Baby Yoda's popularity should be raising red flags for the historically large field of Democratic presidential candidates competing for the attention ahead of the 2020 election. According to data by Newswhip that was shared exclusively with Axios, Baby Yoda is generating more social media chatter for every story produced about him than any candidate covered in the press. That includes those leading the Democratic race, such as Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Pete Buttigieg. Baby Yoda is inspiring 1,671 interactions per story, compared with 850 for Sanders, 839 for Biden, and 600 for Buttigieg, says Axios. Tulsi Gabbard, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren are trailing in further behind the little man, claiming 523, 504, and 496 interactions per story, respectively. According to Axios, however, this analysis should be most vexing to 2 new names in the Democratic race. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Florida, Massachusetts Governor David Deval Patrick. Baby Yoda's introduction coincided with both Bloomberg and Patrick's announcing their bids. So both of the newest 2020 Democrats have had a significant number of articles written about them since November 12th, the site continues, specifying that on this metric Bloomberg ranks second among the Democratic pack with 7,650, while Patrick slots in 4th with 4,044. But do all those stories mean that non-journalists are interested? Maybe not, Axios says. With Baby Yoda in mix with the 2020 Democrats, Bloomberg ranks 14th and Patrick 16th in terms of average interactions, likes, comments and shares, per story about them, and Baby Yoda has notched up an average interaction rate of 10 times higher than theirs. Does this mean anything? Should we be surprised by Baby Yoda's apparent impact compared with the political politicians vying to be the leader of the new free world? At least Biden and Sanders and Warren supporters can take heart. Since November 12th, Axios says Baby Yoda has claimed 2.28 million raw interactions, thereby trailing those 3 presidential hopefuls. So, yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's not comparable, but it just, for me, it's just that this is society. You know, and often we do not focus on the most important thing, we focus on the most popular thing. So yes, Baby Yoda, officially called the child. We know it's, if you've seen the show, I've seen the show, it's Yoda's species, but we don't know, it's just called the child. And in regards to timeline, I don't know if this could be Yoda himself, or if it's just another one of his species, which is an interesting thing, because we've never, if you're a Star Wars fan, to my knowledge, certainly from the movies, there's never been an indication that there's more of his species. I don't know what species he is. I'm sure a Star Wars fan will be able to tell me. So yes, so it's just known as the child, but it is an adorable little thing. It's never spoken a word in the show, and yet it's getting far more, social media attention and hits and likes and shares and this than anything else. And again, it's the article's a bit of fun, isn't it? Let's face it, it's not going to trouble these candidates, but it is one of those things where, politics. This is far more important in regards how our lives are going to look going forward, certainly to Americans. But that's not the most popular thing. The most popular thing is what's on TV, who's wearing what, who's going where, who's dating who, and that's just society in general. But I mainly put it up because I want someone to make me a knitted baby Yoda because I think that's adorable. So there you go. I don't think these candidates are going to worry too much. 2020 is going to be what it is, and yeah, The Mandalorian streaming on Disney Plus if that's your kind of thing. Anyway, let's move on to our final story. So, final story today comes to us from Sky News. Loud bang heard in London and Hertfordshire was sonic boom, police say. So the picture there is of two trees in a garden. It's actually a sound clip. It's someone's got like a camera looking at the back garden. If you play the clip, you will hear the boom. And it does sound very reminiscent of a loud gunshot or an explosion. And this is the basis of the story. So, a loud bang heard throughout North London and surrounding area with a sonic boom from an RAF fighter jets, which was scrambled after an aircraft lost contact in UK airspace. Hundreds of people reported being woken up by the noise about 4:20 AM this morning, with some saying their homes shook. An RAF spokesperson said the two Typhoon fighter aircraft from RAF Coningsby were scrambled at 4:09 this morning as part of the UK's quick reaction alert procedures after an aircraft lost communication in UK airspace. The aircraft was intercepted and its communications were subsequently re-established. They added the Typhoons returned to their base afterwards. The Metropolitan Police said the loud bang heard throughout North London and surrounding areas was the result of a sonic boom from RAF planes. It cautioned there was no cause for concern. The force had earlier said it was aware of reports of a loud bang in the North London area and was investigating. Sonic boom is a noise that is created when by the shockwaves created when a flying object travels faster than the speed of sound, which is Mach 1 around 767 miles per hour. So if you're curious about this, have a look at it on YouTube. There's loads of videos of it. As you punch through the sound barrier, you get a sonic boom, and it's a physical thing. You can see it. It kind of, it's almost like on the videos, if it's like against the blue sky, you'll see a fighter jet, and when it hits it, when it kind of passes through, imagine poking your finger through a piece of cling film, you get this kind of, it kind of bends around the aircraft. It's like a little, and you get a really loud bang. So yeah, Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service said it had received a large number of calls from across the whole of Hertfordshire regarding a large explosion sound. Social media users in Cambridge, West London, Stevenage and Essex also said they heard the sound. One Twitter user wrote, "Anyone else hear that explosion? Barnet entire place shook." Another said they felt really scared and thought the world was about to end. A similar incident occurred in June when two RAF Typhoon fighter jets were scrambled to escort a plane back to Stansted Airport due to an extremely disruptive passenger. Police reported hearing an explosion, which was later confirmed as a sonic boom. So the thing with this is, again, relating to what I opened the video with the recent events in London, people are naturally nervous. They're wary and this took place in the London area. So if the early hours of the morning you are woken up by a bang and your house shaking, it's not a stretch for you to assume it could be an explosion. Because people are on that. People have this. There's been so much coverage about, the terrorist attack in London, which again, a bomb wasn't used, but he was wearing a fake device, suicide vest. So it's not a leap at all for people to assume maybe this is that, maybe somebody doesn't have a fake vest, and it needs reporting. And maybe they're just being good citizens, ringing up the emergency services going, "I've just heard something, the house shook." So it could be an explosion, anything, it could be a gasworks. But you've got to think that's probably part of it. People are going, let's hope it's not. I mean, the great thing about the story is it wasn't something, it was a completely naturally occurring event. And everyone was safe, and the aircraft they went to, figure out why it lost communication was re-established, and so all ended well. But, I can see why people would be concerned about it. But thankfully it was nothing. Thankfully it was just a sonic boom, and everybody is fine and well. So That's it for today, guys. Links to all the stories I've discussed can be found in the description below, so feel free to go and check them out. Let me know what you think about this video and tell me, what would you want your last meal to be? So not necessarily if you're on death row, let's not keep it that morbid, but you know, if you're getting towards the end of if your clock's running down, it's like, what do you want to go at? What's that last kind of taste in your mouth? Would it be something you've not tried before just because you think, you know what, let's give it a whirl? Or would it be something that takes that happy place, that kind of comfort food? Let me know answers in the comments, please, along with any thoughts you'd like to share. These were mine. They're not necessarily important. They're not necessarily right or wrong. They're just what was on my mind. So until next time, bye for now.